because everything is so corporate. You know, it's like, what did Francis Ford Coppola say? Factory filmmaking. That's the age in which we live. There's factory filmmaking, which is a product and content. And then there's up and coming indie filmmakers. And, you know, when I talked about checking those boxes earlier, a lot of it is like, is it going to appeal international? I mean, let's be honest. The box office internationally, and especially in China, is much bigger than the United States. That market, those dollars. So you can't make a movie for the United States anymore. You have to make a movie for the world.
You know, I keep saying this and I keep harking out. For those of you who want to get into the film business, or if you want to get into this, and you want big corps to back you, don't let Hollywood take a hold of your projects. Don't let network television take a hold of your projects. Do it yourself. Because it is an art. Filmmaking is an art. Always remember that. Filmmaking is an art. What has been going on recently has been the age of the blockbuster. Yes, I understand these companies want to make money. But the thing about it is they're spending money into movies that are just crapping out. Just in the last 10, 20 years, we're seeing some garbage movies by companies like 20th Century and Disney and Paramount and many other companies. I mean, we're seeing film series like superhero series, science fiction, and many other fandoms being destroyed left and right for the sake of intersection and wokenism, diversity and equity. You know, you've seen this paper, and I keep showing this being pushed out by groups on their foundations, and they're passing this around the writers' room. This has been confirmed by writers. They're saying that they're giving this as a template of what to put in and what not to put in. That is what I call Hays Code 2.0. Because if you remember, we've discussed this before about the Hays Code. The Hays Code told you what you could put in a movie and what you can't. And for this to come out and to say the same thing over again, not in the same presence of what to put in and what not, but they're telling you what you should put in a movie. That's not how filmmaking works. That is not how a director works. That's not how a writer works. That's not how an artist works. When someone writes a story, they're writing it from their experiences, from something they wanted to put on paper. An artist paints a painting for something that basically he's been in his mind, or something that he may have seen on the street or in the sky or something to that nature. Filmmaker is the same. And the thing about it is, in this time when you're seeing movies being pushed aside that should get more emphasis, like The Northman, or basically Last Days in Soho, and many other films that are just, you know, smaller films that they seem to be pretty good, and they're being pushed aside for movies that technically people didn't want, sequels that people didn't want, movies based on novels that basically shouldn't have been made, that maybe this is the third, fourth, fifth incarnation of this, and they said you should have stopped at one. 60 words. Isaac Asimov said that to me once. 60 words that he will ever be remembered for.
And it's a little humbling to think that what is most likely to survive of everything I've said. After all, I've published now at least 20 million words, so I have to figure it out, maybe even more. But of all those millions of words that I've published, I am convinced that 100 years from now, only 60 of them will survive. The 60 that make up the 3 laws of robotics.
All right. It's interesting.
Because as time goes on, and he said this would have been, it was going to take a longer piece of time, but hey, it's happening faster. They already did it to his Foundation series. Foundation, Wheel of Time, Lord of the Rings, all of these series, they're rewriting them for the act of either diversity, for equity, for the made for the modern era. But that's not what we want. We want a story that's proper. You can't take a story about Vikings and add Africans and Asians and all that, because technically they didn't exist in the time period that you're writing at, like the Northmen. People criticized on there. And when you have people in Hollywood going like, yeah, we got to interject this and that, they already ruined the Vikings TV series by race and gender swapping a main historical character. And they did the same thing to Amelin, because they said it would be right. No, it would not be right. You're changing history. See, when you start to do that and you look years down the line, people will believe that person existed. You're making up historical characters that don't exist. If you're making a fictional story, then it is a fictional story. Don't use historical events. Perfect example, one of the best I see is The Kingsman. How they've done that series very well done. They should do more of them, just like that. Because they run around the historical events that predecessed into the series, into the movie. But what they did was they added things to it that basically made it fictitious. You can't do that with historical events like the Vikings. And the reason why we discuss this is that there's an article on No Film School this past week. And there was an interview on GQ with Francis Ford Coppola, and this is coming out here. Is Francis Ford Coppola still relevant in the age of the blockbuster? And this particular article on No Film School is written by Alyssa Miller. Francis Ford Coppola is a name we all resonate in some way, whether it's through the cinema, wine, or a generation of success that lies with the offspring we all connect with the household name. Many of the greatest movies ever made has his name attached to them, making each of their projects an exciting venture that could be celebrated long after everyone who worked on the project is gone. The 50th anniversary of The Godfather releases gives us a chance to look at Coppola's career at his most ambiguous desire to create film. He has been wanting to make for over 40 years Megalopolis. Could the great American filmmaker still have a hit movie in the era of the blockbuster? But what the studio would fund such a grand, ambitious, and impossible to summarize project in the age of Marvel? See, this is what we push up on this. In the age of Marvel, why are we calling it the age of Marvel? We're putting all these films on there. One company is actually it's 2 companies really, but it's one group of filmmaking is being pushed out there, and it's the Marvel universe. But there's also a DC universe as well. And it's not doing as well as on there. We've seen the issues on there. In a recent interview, GQ asked Coppola how executives react when he describes Megalopolis to them, and responded the same way he did when he won 5 Oscars and was the hottest director in town and walked in with Apocalypse Now and said, "I'd like to make this next." Coppola believes that Megalopolis is his final dream, the ultimate think piece that will continue his legacy for years as people try to understand what he was trying to say in the film. Coppola says, "Do you know why I own Apocalypse Now? Because no one else wanted it." Exactly. He made it, he did it, nobody wanted it, but it's still one of the greatest war films made in history. Coppola has always been aware of Hollywood's intentions when it comes to film. When he came to LA for film school, he immediately felt disappointed with Hollywood. Still, he found a way to make movies, nudie picture films for producer, talent spotters Roger Corman, and 2 other studio projects, You're a Big Boy Now, his UCLA thesis project, and the Broadway adaptations of Finnegan's Rainbow. Although his love for the cinema is underlying, he cannot recognize or enjoy the modern movie industry. He told GQ, "There used to be studio films. Now there are Marvel pictures. And what is a Marvel picture? A Marvel picture is one prototype of movie that is made over and over and over again to look different. Even the talented people. You could take Dune by Denis Villeneuve, an extremely talented and gifted artist, and you could take No Time to Die, directed by Cary Fukunaga, extremely gifted and talented artist, and you could take those movies, and you and I could go and pull the same sequences out of both of them and put them together. The same sequences where all cars crash together into each other. They all have stuff in it, and they almost have to have it if they're going to justify their budget, and that's the good films and talented filmmakers. Unlike most directors who yell at the sky about the disdain towards superhero movies, Coppola has been actively trying to change the state of Hollywood since the start of his career. After he successfully financed Apocalypse Now himself and the film proved to be a hit, Coppola decided to create his own studio, Zoetrope. The first film he made for Zoetrope Studios was One from the Heart, was a commercial bomb that caused Coppola to lose $25 million from his studios. Megalopolis is Coppola's next chef d'oeuvre, his dream that could break him financially, as he decided to sell a significant piece of his wine empire last year to fund the project. Is he crazy to do the project in a moment when cinema is overwhelmed by the blockbuster? The cinephile in me believes that he is saner than ever, creating what he wants the way he wants it. And that is true. You have situations where there are directors out there. There are directors in the Hollywood scheme that cannot do the films that they want. Hollywood, the studio, ends up taking their work and twisting it. You can ask many directors out there. They will tell you the same. They don't have the final say in most of their projects. Could Megalopolis succeed? That's another question that makes us wonder how anyone could create their passion project with a studio backing them if they're not catering to Hollywood blockbuster standards. One thing obvious is Coppola will find a way to make what he wants to make. We are artists creating works that represent our souls. Hollywood can manipulate your soul to create what could work in Hollywood but isn't sustainable. Personal films will last forever, allowing young filmmakers to watch what they created and become inspired to do the same. It's a cycle of inspiration, and that's true. It's inspiration that adds to the filmmaking. That takes a major financial risk. If you're willing to take the risk, then do it. And that's true. You know, you have movies, you know, when you look at Coppola, you look at The Godfather. Look how great The Godfather is, and Godfather 2. Godfather 3, so-so. Apocalypse Now, such a great film. So well made. I mean, the madness that you look at the perspective of the movie itself, of how it starts out from one point of view of madness to another point of view of madness. And everything in between to get to that final madness, which ends to be like some of the greatest filmmaking you'll ever see about the Vietnam War. And then you have many other films out there. Terry Gilliam's Brazil. If you've never seen Brazil, I've seen Brazil in the movie theater. It's such fantastic. They cut it up here. I would say if you ever want to see Brazil with De Niro, see the uncut version or the director's cut. You'll love it. It is such a fantastic movie. That's the type of movie you want to see, an artsy on there. Then there's The Proposition, which is a fantastic Western taken from the point of view of the Australian outback, because the Australian outback went through their time periods of sort of a Western front, whereas they wanted to change Australia from a penal colony to an actual colony and stuff where people can go there, move their families, and live. But they had to get rid of the criminal element that was there, the prisoners that were there. And this was one of the stories that was created, that showcased on there, and it was beautifully shot on there. Then I have to say, from he, she, whatever you want, Elliot Page's breakout movie. People would say, well, it's that the pregnancy movie where she was pregnant. No, it's a 2005 indie film called Hard Candy. If you've not seen, and Sandra Oh's in this too, as well, and Patrick Wilson. Really engaging movie about a girl kidnapping a guy, claiming that he's a, and it's a fantastic film. It's a shocking film, but it's really well done. It's very well done. And this is the many other films that are out there, and then many other great films out there. Some from here, some from overseas. You had some great directors out there, like Akira Kurosawa, fantastic director. If you've never seen any of his films, Seventh Samurai, which was remade into The Magnificent Seven, the influence of films like that have on there, Kagamushi, many other films that influence other films on there, fantastically done, not a blockbuster, but very well, well done film. You look at others that have been thrown at the cinema, and I'm talking about the art house. Here, New York City, we have some of them still left. Some of them are gone. Some are still left. We have the Angelica down on Houston Street. Still one of the best places to see an art house film. I saw The Proposition there. I saw Hard Candy. I saw many other films there that have been there for many years of life that the Angelica's been there. And the Angelica's been there since the 80s. We wouldn't have movies like Solaris. And I'm not talking about the newer version. I'm talking about the original version of Solaris, which was a fantastic film on there. And then there were other films that have been reaching. 2001 Space Odyssey. People say they find it a little boring for that film, but it isn't. It's a fantastically well-made film. The sequel didn't do well on there, but it's fantastically done. Then there's a film with Peter Dinklage, 2003, really great film. Well worth the watch. The Station Agent, really well done. And I can go on and on and on. You can go through the Criterion Collection. And the Criterion Collection has tons of films out there from the silent era to present day that still grasp people if you've not seen this. And this is one of the reasons why we have Saturday Pre-Flight, and we discuss these things on Saturday Pre-Flight. And Saturday Pre-Flight will be returning in this fall. We're working on a new version of it. We're rebranding it, and making it really more informative to the situation, and showing you a lot more stuff on there. And when you take a trip, and I tell you, take a trip back to the classics. There are some great directors out there, past and present, that have made some great films that must never, ever be lost. We have lost films out there. There are films by directors, by actors, that have been lost to history. And then there are still others that haven't been remastered, changed, some of the classic stuff from the early days, from the silent era, from the early talkie days, the pre-code era, the Hays Code era, the 70s. There are a lot of films of the 70s and 80s that are really good, that haven't even gotten a DVD release. Whether it's science fiction, horror, drama, they still haven't gotten their due because the studios, they don't care about them anymore. If anything, we need a renaissance of classic films, and I hope that comes very soon. And I hope Coppola is able to master this film that he's working on, because he is right out there. He is right. There, you know, the blockbusters are the blockbusters, but the real art of film is the art, the love that goes into the film itself. Not the same one over. And this is why the ambulance movie didn't do well. Why? It's the same crash 'em up, smash 'em up that we see every time. Chris Gore, who used to be on G4, said the same thing in an interview. All these movies in the last 10, 20 years have been the same. They've just been the same, one after another and after another. We need a fresh crop of ideas, and they are out there. They're on social media, they're on YouTube, they're on BitChute, they're on many other places that they're showing their wares. And I'm telling you right now, crowdfund your product. That's the way to go. You will make some money. And this is how people will come to see your film. They will break down doors. Once you establish yourself, they will fund your films. You've seen this already, where one author has made millions of dollars, $40 million, just to crowdfund your book. Another gentleman from YouTube itself has raised about $1.5 million to crowdfund his horror film. The money's out there. You just gotta know how to grab it. Because if you have a great idea, don't let Hollywood touch it. Do it yourself.
It's very important that a director, in America particularly, be his own producer, you know, because under American and English law, we don't have rights over our work, which you enjoy in countries like Belgium and France and Italy and so on. The artist has a certain proprietary right over his work.